Hey everybody, it's PartyElite, and today we're taking a look at Steam's February Next Fest to kick off another year of demos on display. As usual around these parts, this video will focus on strategy, tactics, management, and city building games primarily, and if you like those kinds of games and want to stay up to date with reviews, previews, let's plays, and more, you might want to consider subscribing to this channel. Now, with no more time to waste with an intro and with timestamps down below, let's begin. To kick things off, I'm very excited to see Phantom Brigade finally making its appearance on Steam. After a longer than expected stint as an Epic Game Store exclusive during its early access, it looks like this turn-based tactical mech combat game is finally ready for its 1.0 release on Steam, and Next Fest is a great opportunity for you to try it out and see why Phantom Brigade is one of my absolute favorites of the recent years. I played quite a bit of it back in the day, and the high-octane action mixed with awesome mech designs really made me just feel like a kid again in the best possible way. You lead a small band of resistance fighters whose nation has been conquered, fighting back with the help of special experimental predictive technology that allows you to see what the enemy is going to do in the very near future. This translates in gameplay terms into the enemy telegraphing its moves in battle, allowing you to plan your own accordingly, running, dashing, jetpacking, gunning, and slashing with a massive variety of weapon types and an even larger variety of parts stitched together to make each mech your own. Will you have a melee specialist that can take a pummeling as it closes the gap? Do you want a super light sniper that zips around the battlefield to stay alive, unable to withstand even a single shot, but able to pack a punch from a distance? You'll jump on top of buildings, you'll collapse them onto your enemies, and you'll seek out clever angles of fire as you travel the countryside, liberating villages, recruiting pilots, and manufacturing parts to field multiple different kinds of mechs as the missions dictate. There is so much style and variety in this game, I could talk about it for hours, and in fact, I did exactly that over the course of my several hours of live streaming it a couple of years ago, and I just can't wait to dive back in. If you like turn-based tactical combat, if you like mechs, if you like high-intensity action, make sure you check Phantom Brigade out. From its unique timeline-based approach to giving orders, to its heat, shield, and armor management concepts, to its ability to make a turn-based game feel as intense as an action game, there are many reasons to dive in. A competitor to the Eugen wargame style of games, Broken Arrow pits the United States against Russia in massive battlefields at war using modern technology across air, land, and sea. The scale of the battlefields in this real-time strategy game is immense, and if you're a fan of the level of detail and nuance in the wargame series, where the altitude of choppers can be adjusted to hide from SAMs, where armor thickness varies from side to side on vehicles, and where the simplicity of rock, paper, scissors mechanics are tossed out for a more realistic approach to battlefield considerations, Broken Arrow is well worth checking out. I've been looking forward to this game since it was first announced, and I'm really glad to see it in this playable state with quite a bit of promise. The unit customization mechanics are an intriguing differentiator from its competitors, allowing you to build spec ops or unit variants to match mission parameters, and they all look absolutely gorgeous on the battlefield, and I simply cannot stress enough just how impressive the scale of it all is. Broken Arrow is definitely worth checking out during Steam Next Fest. The Great War Western Front is a very exciting game set to release in just a month or so's time now, and if you're interested in a World War I strategy game that does an excellent job of representing the inch-by-inch nature of the conflict, this one's well worth checking out. In the full game, you'll be able to play on either side of the war, ordering troops around a hex-based campaign map, planning your moves around weather conditions, morale, and available material, as well as enemy positioning. You'll fight on the same persistent battlefield multiple times to make even a hex of progress, and you'll see it deteriorate over time as buildings collapse, the ground gets pockmarked, and trenches stay from battle to battle until the front eventually moves one way or another. And they'll still be there when the front inevitably moves back. You'll chase after side objectives alongside the primary ones of reducing the opposing national will to zero or conquering their respective headquarters on the map, and in order to do so, you'll spend your gold reserves to acquire additional supplies and tools and to erect buildings that enable your troops in battle. When battles actually kick off, you'll have the choice to auto-resolve them or to fight them yourself, leading real-time battles that have you laying down trenches, placing MG nests, planning assaults, and otherwise commanding supporting actions from artillery and your air force alike. The game has some excellent ideas on display, from the need to keep an eye on your supplies, to keep the aforementioned artillery firing and reinforcements coming mid-battle, to how the tech tree takes you from the early parts of the war to the later ones, introducing tanks, flamethrowers, and mustard gas alike. The Next Fest build will let you check out the campaign map and some of the real-time combat alike, and I've got a deep dive video I made after I had a chance to play the game just last week. You can check that out at the link in the pinned comment and description down below, and if you like what you see, I highly recommend giving the Next Fest build a try. Xenonauts 2 is finally playable at Steam Next Fest this year, and just keep in mind, you do not need to be familiar with Xenonauts 1 to enjoy Xenonauts 2, so don't let that hold you back from taking charge of your secret global organization and defending humanity against a terrifying extraterrestrial threat. You'll establish multiple bases around the world, planning their placement based on the reach of your task forces and air forces stationed at them, specializing them for detection or defensive capabilities, designing them to take advantage of adjacency bonuses and the various benefits acquired from using certain types of structures or others. You'll use your engineering teams to build gear, autonomous weapons platforms, aircraft, and armaments alike, and you'll get your research team to explore cutting-edge technology, including stuff that exploits alien resources and weapons that you loot from the battlefield. Said battlefields involve turn-based tactical combat scenarios spread throughout the world, often at UFO crash sites that result from you sending interceptors to bring them down in the first place. These turn-based tactical battles have a lot of unique aspects to them. For one, your squad size is quite large, with a huge variety of options in terms of how you want to use each individual, choosing when to crouch behind cover, when to use different firing modes for different hit chances and damage output, or when to use different weapons entirely, some which blow your enemies and potential loot into unrecoverable dust particles. On top of all that, these battles make line of sight a priority, with vision cones and verticality playing a huge role in what you see and what you can hit, especially important since your enemies are active regardless of if you've seen them or not. Xenonauts 2 doesn't wait for you to trigger enemy patrols, nor does it wait for you to see the aliens before they see you. No. When you arrive on the battlefield on board a massive troop carrier, the alien are very much aware of your presence, hunting you, using cover, sneaking around, and trying to ping you before you ping them. Battles are challenging, hit points are limited, and your troops will suffer grievous wounds. If they survive, though, they'll improve their capabilities over time through battlefield experience, as well as training back at base, making them more and more capable over time. There's a lot to talk about here, from the variety of enemy types to the variety of mission types, but rather than hear me blather on, I highly recommend checking Xenonauts 2 out during Next Fest and seeing it all in action for yourself. Plan B Terraform was featured in the Steam Base Builder Fest just a couple weeks ago, and I had a chance to play the demo, and I immediately fell in love with it. Imagine a game inspired in many ways by the supply chain management systems of Factorio, blended with the ideas of terraforming an entire planet to make it habitable for humans. A city builder in some ways, your primary focus is on the movement and manufacturing of goods and resources, as well as the actual terraforming process, leaving the nitty-gritty minutiae of where buildings are placed and the supply of housing and power to the automation in the game itself. You'll need to hook up extractors with depots, depots with factories, factories with more depots, and them with assembly plants, so on and so forth. And since every factory or assembly plant or extractor is only able to produce one thing at any given time, you'll need to queue up and hook up a variety of different production chains to create more complex items that ultimately help your cities grow and the planet change. You'll hook up roads, arrange truck convoys, build train lines, and plan massive networks of operation that span the entirety of a hex-based planet with a variety of resource deposits that need tapping into for an ever-increasing series of requirements. It's a simple premise, which is what makes its complexity all the more compelling. You can find some gameplay on the channel already, and I'll link it in the description and pinned comment down below, but if this sounds at all interesting to you, I highly recommend checking it out during this Next Fest. Sons of Valhalla is a side-scrolling action game with base building and RPG elements that's well worth checking out. A simple storyline has you chasing after the person that murdered your people, kidnapped the love of your life, and ran off to England, setting up a revenge story that even has the backing of the gods. You'll run around the English countryside securing key landmarks where you can build up your bases, collect and trade resources, train units, and research upgrades to help them and you in combat. Combat itself is a matter of striking, dodging, and blocking while giving orders to the troops under your command as you're pit against a variety of enemies, at times perched up on watchtowers or behind gates that need destroying first. Don't expect them to sit idly as you conquer more and more of England either. They'll push back, and you'll need to defend your base, fortifying it and providing it with a garrison before pushing back out again. with a constant back and forth movement as you progress. With each kill comes loot, and as you proceed from left to right, you'll stumble across chests and barrels full of resources and from time to time, runes that can provide you with buffs or an additional lease on life. Every time you die, Odin asks you to sacrifice one such rune to get sent back to the battlefield and continue your revenge story. If not the gods, it's everything from swordsmen to siege equipment at your disposal, each with an ideal use case scenario, and each with weaknesses you'll want to be cognizant of at all times too. Sons of Valhalla is a very pretty game with some pretty interesting ideas stitched together. If you're looking for something a little different than the norm, Sons of Valhalla is definitely worth checking out. Roots of Yggdrasil is a fun roguelike city builder that's showing a lot of promise. Set after Ragnarok, you're working to restore Yggdrasil and the world itself, going from randomly generated map to randomly generated map to build up a city and accomplish objectives in your current cycle before you return to your permanent home base of Holt to spend some of the resources you collect in the pursuit of upgrades across a few different categories. Some of these options might make resource production more efficient, others might give you access to more types of buildings and options, and so on and so forth. Once you spend said resources as you see fit, you can head out for another cycle to seek additional resources to ultimately restore Yggdrasil. A cycle here refers to your city building expedition, which sometimes consists of multiple independent cities across multiple maps back to back before you return to your home base. The city building process itself seems simple at first glance. You have a handful of resources to consider, separate from the ones you use to upgrade things back at your HQ, and these resources are used to build buildings, explore more territory to expand into, or otherwise upgrade your capabilities during your current cycle. Some buildings generate resources on their own, others need to be in close proximity of each other to generate resources, while others still generate resources when placed in close proximity to things like trees or iron ore, though they might also need to be kept close to houses to actually keep them operational. Things become a bit of a puzzle then as you try to maximize the little real estate you have to work with. Resources are generated on a turn-by-turn basis, but as you proceed through the turns, you also risk random events that can cause you trouble. Eventually, if you take too long to accomplish your objectives, things get significantly more challenging, forcing you to choose between the safety of your headquarters, taking with you what you already have, or continued expeditions in a riskier environment in the hopes of gathering more. I think there's a lot of potential here, and the demo points out just how many features are still in development, but there's a solid foundation here for a nice, chill city builder that can quickly escalate in challenge and threat level depending on how it progresses over time. Darkest Dungeon 2 is the sequel to one of my favorite indie games of all time, and while many would have hoped the sequel to be an extension of the familiar, the devs decided to make a significantly different type of game instead, pulling familiar elements and fan favorites while creating a relatively fresh experience. The iconic art style and combat system meets a new roguelike approach as you travel the hazardous countryside on your carriage with a preset team, choosing your path to get from Safe House Tavern to Safe House Tavern, while picking when to engage with the enemy, when to dive into boss battles, when to explore the backstories of your companions, and when to upgrade them through their skill trees. As you proceed, you'll try to keep the fire of hope lit on your carriage. As it dims, the enemy will grow stronger, but so too will the rewards and loot become more worthwhile. Being a roguelike, you'll hold on to your improvements to each of your characters as you go through multiple playthroughs, and each time your party gets completely wiped out, you'll make progress through the overall upgrade tree to unlock higher level loot that you'll come across mid-mission. This loot can be equipped across your characters across different archetypes for different kinds of buffs and abilities, though again, the really good stuff is only available if you play and fail and play again. Combat will be familiar to fans of the first game, where positioning and synergies are of the utmost importance, pitting your squad against a huge variety of enemy types, each with their own attack patterns and strategies, featuring bosses that are particularly cool in terms of their design and approach. The classic aesthetic from the first game is still very much in place, as is the narrator, and the escalating, punishing challenge of Darkest Dungeon is still very much in place as well in the sequel, despite how differently it's approached. If you enjoyed the first game, you'll enjoy this one. What I love most about the unique approach compared to the previous one, in fact, is that we now have two great Darkest Dungeon games well worth playing simultaneously, rather than just a sequel that means you'll abandon the first game. Either way, I highly recommend checking it out for yourself during this next fest. Set to release spring of this year, Fabledom is the most adorable city builder you'll see in this list. Vibrant, colorful, and just chock full of charm. The game is set in the magical lands of a fairy tale, quite literally taking place within the pages of a storybook. While most of it revolves around the familiar tropes of city building and colony management, with you building resource-gathering buildings, assigning workers, and ensuring you've collected enough food and coal to keep people fed and warmed through the harsher winter months, it has a few elements unique to its setting that are quite, dare I say, charming. Diplomacy between you and other kingdoms is a key part of the game, built around the context of courtship, sending gifts to and receiving them from other kingdoms, improving relations through missives that ultimately might result in unlocking additional building options and who knows what more. Similarly, you can opt to declare war with other kingdoms, and though it isn't available in the current build, I'm quite curious to see how it plays. There's references to champions and the like, so I have no doubt it leans into that fairy tale angle just as much. You'll grow in stature as your population increases, you'll unlock new resources and building options, and you'll go on adventures in nearby ruins and more. The Fabledom is both adorable and complex, which is an excellent combination on top of the unique angle that it's taking that makes it well worth checking out. There you have it, folks. Some great games worth checking out during the current Steam Next Fest. If you found something you liked here, hit the like button down below and let me know. And don't forget to subscribe for more strategy, sim, and city building previews, reviews, let's plays, and more. Feel free to drop your own thoughts and recommendations in the comments down below. And as always, a massive thanks goes out to all of the channel members and patrons who've been supporting the channel on a monthly basis. Y'all keep us alive and running smoothly. And of course, a big old thanks goes out to each and every one of you for watching. Until next time, cheers.